Chelsea fans, welcome back to Talking Chelsea. Welcome back to your Chelsea news. We have a little update regarding Xavi Simons to Chelsea and potentially getting a new centre-back. Talks between Bayern Munich, Christopher Nkunku and RB Leipzig seem to be heating up. Another Serie A team wants Carney Chukwuemeka, and it looks like Nicolas Jackson could be leaving on loan. Now, of course, I've given my own thoughts and opinions on everything that's been reported, but more importantly, I want to know what you guys think down below in the comments. And before we get into the video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you are a Chelsea fan who enjoys Chelsea content. We're on the road to 10k before the end of 2025. Kicking things off, Matt Law has reported that Chelsea have already set up a deal with RB Leipzig for Xavi Simons. Now, this is like a continuation on yesterday's video where I basically said, I feel like the deal was already done. I feel like this has been done behind the scenes and we are literally waiting for either Nkunku or Jackson to leave Chelsea and then bam, instantly triggered, Chelsea, Leipzig, Simons transfer happens. And this is kind of more confirmation of this. So I don't want to spend too much time on it. We did spend a lot of time on it in yesterday's video. So if you haven't seen it, feel free to check it out. But I was basically saying that I feel like the deal was done behind the scenes and it looks like it already has been. It looks like it's already in place. We're just waiting for that domino. And a similar thing happened with the Christopher Nkunku deal, except it was less public. So it hit us with more of a surprise, I believe, when we signed Christopher Nkunku. We might have had some whispers, some rumours. Nothing as concrete, nothing as dragged out as the Xavi Simons deal. It's been going on for like over a month, which is wild. But this is further confirmation that, you know, I know the here we go meter is this relatively new thing, and Fabrizio said yesterday it's like 85%. This basically says to me, look, the 15% is if we could offload a player, and as simple as that. And we have some more information regarding Nkunku and Jackson later in this video, which we're going to elaborate and explain about a lot of things that have been reported in terms of their departures. So things are looking really good for Chelsea. I feel like Xavi Simons will definitely be a Chelsea player by the end of the window. Touch wood, fingers crossed, all of the good omens that we can have. But I can see this deal happening, and this is just further confirmation. Fabrizio Romano has reported on the Here We Go podcast that Chelsea recruitment team and higher-ups are convinced that Chelsea have enough depth and cover for Levi Colwill. Then, if there is an opportunity in the final days, I will let you know, but right now, no talks. Maresca would love to have a new centre-back. I find this very interesting because there's been a lot of talk around the centre-back depth. We've spoke about this many times here on the channel. I believe that we do have enough depth, and I feel like the board would probably take the logical approach of seeing how we get on in the first half of the season and then make any sort of emergency transfers in January, because that's kind of what the window's for, right? A lot of you guys have told me in the comments as well, like, nah, Jay, we just need a centre-back. And I hear it. I really do. I feel like our defensive line has got so solid over the last 4 or 5 months that it kind of goes under the radar. Us fans, as fans, we have varying opinions, and that's why I love football. It's why I love talking to you guys every day, right? Now, when it comes to our defensive line, I feel like it does split the fan base a little bit, but realistically speaking, it's become a lot more solid. It doesn't matter if Josh is playing, it doesn't matter if Chalobah's playing, or if Tosin's playing, Gusto been playing recently, whatever it may be. It's just a lot more solid. And it works very well with Sanchez. And Sanchez has had a lot more confidence. He has sort of improved over time as well. I know you guys are very split on Sanchez as well. And I get it. I hear it. I just find it very interesting that now we're hearing the logical side of the argument rather than the media side of it, of saying like, right now we're not having any talks. Right now we're not actively looking for a centre-back because we do have the depth. We feel confident in the players that we have. And I really respect that, because what's the point of having all these players if you're not going to give them a chance, right? We've heard that Aaron Anselmino's got a lot of interest in Europe over a loan, but they might potentially keep him if Maresca thinks he's ready. That's another centre-back that, yes, he's young, inexperienced, but can get some minutes and get some important game time across the competitions this season. We know how good Josh is and how much he's going to excel this season. I still stick by the fact that I think this is going to be a breakout season for him in terms of regular game time and developing into another role that he can add to his skill house, or his wheelhouse, sorry. But then they're also saying if an opportunity does arise in the last final days of the window, we will attack it. We will go for it. And I feel like that's been the strategy for this whole window. Yes, the Xavi Simons deal. Yes, the player who shall not be named. Those deals have been stretched out for long periods of time. Yes, the Jamie Gittins deal took a lot longer, or a bit longer than what we're used to expecting in the transfer window of basically 28, 48 hours of bang, 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 deals done, right? However, they have been very aggressive in the market. They got the Delap deal done very quickly. They got the Gittins deal over the line. We had the Club World Cup. Had a little bit of a breather. We've done a lot of sales in a short period of time. One day we got rid of 3 players. The next day we got rid of a couple more. Like, we have been aggressive in the market in key areas, and I really respect that. I think it's been a very, very good window for Chelsea. And like we said in yesterday's video, if we offload the players that are remaining on the list, then we are close to £300 million in player sales and a net zero spend, which is wild for a Chelsea Football Club. I can't remember the last time, if there's ever been one, where it's been a net zero spend in a window. So we are doing very well, and I like that they're taking this tactical approach, and there's a lot more confidence in the directors, and even from the fans' perspective. Not everyone is sold on it, fair enough, but a lot more kind of like, well, do you know what? We should trust them because they've had a lot more hits than they have misses, and players have developed and kicked on and really started playing up to the standard that we want them to be. Yes, there's still room for improvement, but we can see the vision a bit clearly now. Now we're seeing results on the pitch, so I think this is a fair statement. If Maresca wants a new centre-back, he's been very public about it, that there is no replacement for Levi Colwill in terms of how important he is to his system and how much of a connection those two have. But at the same time, he has said that Fofana can play that role, and Tosin can play that role, and Josh can learn and grow into that role. So I think it's basically injury dependent. If Fofana can stay fit for a little bit longer, which again, I have no real hope for, and that's not a horrible thing to say, just going off of history, he doesn't stay fit for long. So I'm assuming it's going to be a repeat of that, right? Badiashile seems to be injured around transfer windows, and every time it's not a transfer window, he seems to be fit. So maybe he could come in and fill a role. I know a lot of you guys are split on Badiashile as well. I feel like he can play a role. And the times he came in last season and played, off the bench or did a role for a certain game, I feel like he was fairly solid. Nothing groundbreaking, but better than his performances the season prior. And then obviously you've got the likes of Hatter, who could play left centre-back. Again, new to the league, mainly going to be used as a left-back rotation with Cucurella, but can obviously play that role. Tosin, I think, is solid, consistent, and can play that line-breaking passes and can play that Colwill role. My only concern, like I mentioned yesterday, is can he do it over a 38-game season? We shall soon see. It's very good news that it was a minor injury. He should be back for this week. He's been training this week. Amazing news. Kind of, takes the pressure off and takes the anxiety off of that centre-back position. But I really like the fact that Chelsea are like, look, if an opportunity comes up, we'll attack it. We'll go for that new centre-back. If Maresca wants one, he's probably sitting there rubbing his hands together saying, great, hopefully there's an opportunity that arises. Obviously, Chelsea have been linked with Bastoni recently and Konate. And I said that this magic number of £43 million has been thrown around, but Chelsea have come out and actively said, we're not linked with these players. Well, they said that with Bastoni very, very quickly, but they haven't said anything to Konate. But I honestly think Konate will either get a contract renewal at Liverpool, because the window's getting, it's closing very, very slowly, day by day, quicker than what we think, if that makes sense. So if he's going to move, it's a very short window to do that, but I can see him getting a contract renewal at Liverpool. But yeah, I just thought it was really important to update in terms of the centre-back scenario, where we're at, what seems to be the recruitment team and the higher-ups, what they're thinking, that they're back in the squad. And I respect that, I rate that. I also want to back the squad as much as possible. Now, look, a brand new centre-back would be amazing. I don't think that's going to be the downfall of us this season. I think we've got an incredibly strong and quality squad. And I feel like it's just going to have to adapt ever so slightly against certain teams, against certain opposition, which Maresca has started to do tactically and formation-wise and player role-wise anyway. So very curious to know your thoughts down below. Do you agree with the sentiment of the recruitment team and the higher-ups that if an opportunity arises, for sure, go for it, but we can actually back the current squad that we have going into the rest of the season? Ben Jacobs has reported breaking news. Juventus have made an approach to Chelsea over the potential signing of Carney Chukwuemeka. The Blues are insisting on a permanent departure. However, Alex Crook has reported that Juventus want to sign Carney Chukwuemeka on loan. I don't understand what it is about a lot of these mainland European teams, right? Germany or Spain or Italy, maybe not Spain as much. They just want loans. They just want loan deals. Where's all the money gone? Where's all the money gone? Can someone tell me where has all the money gone? Because they're making transfers for the prices that they want, or they're selling players for whether it's elevated prices or fair market value, whatever. But they're not willing to spend the money. Now I know that the Premier League has a monopoly in terms of the amount of money swishing around in that league, and we do shoot our money gun across Europe sometimes. However, I find it very frustrating, and I'm sure you guys do as fans too, that we'd be happy to keep Carney, but I just don't see him getting into this first team anymore, unfortunately. That's the reality of it, a harsh reality of it, in my opinion. So yes, he is looking to be moved on this window. There's been reports that Carney doesn't like the way Chelsea treat the players, etc. Whether that's true or not, we don't know. We've covered it here on the channel. Chelsea just want that clean cut, and they're saying, we don't want another loan for him. If give us the money, you can have him. Because he did that loan last year. Dortmund have been messing us around in terms of lowballing us for price, wanting another loan, trying to just play the system and try and be a bit shady with the deals. And I've said many times, Chelsea just cut ties with them in terms of dealing transfers the other way. We had to compromise in the purchase of Jamie Gittins, but they're not showing the same sort of respect or mutual respect, business respect, the other way when they're trying to sign one of our players. I don't know. I just find it a bit disrespectful, a bit insulting, really. But at the same time, the game's the game. I get it, right? You try and get the best business deal. But then now Juventus, a club from Serie A, whether or not it's Alex Crook or Ben Jacobs that are right here in terms of it's going to be a loan or a permanent. I'm hoping it will be a permanent because it's a player that Chelsea will be looking to offload. Carney just wants to play regular football. He really wanted the Dortmund move, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen because they keep messing around at club-to-club level. But Juventus would be an incredible move for him. I think he'd do insanely well in the Serie A. And as far as I'm aware, Juventus have some dough. They were also inquiring about Nicolas Jackson and saying they could pay the 60 million euros, but they will question whether wages would be an issue. Or it might have been for Nkunku. It might be one of the two, but that was basically what I said. We have the money for the transfer fee. Our wage is going to be an issue. Now that I say that, it actually sounds a bit more like Nkunku, but they've also been linked with Nicolas Jackson as well, right? So I just find it very confusing that teams know that we've got a load of players we want to offload in a short period of time, so maybe they're just trying to get the best deal possible. I don't know. Maybe they're just trying their luck. If you don't ask, you don't get type of thing. And I kind of get it, but at the same time, it's just getting really frustrating with Carney because I'm sure he's a bit like, I just want to play football. Where am I going next season? The Premier League season started. The Bundesliga season starts this Friday. You know, I don't know about the Serie A and etc., but they're all starting this week. He just wants to play football. And I get that. He's a professional. He wants to just do what he loves doing, right? So it'd be very interesting to know if this turned out to be a loan or if it does turn out to be a permanent. I'm hopeful that Chelsea are persistent saying, you know, and the report did say that we want a permanent deal. But it'd be interesting to see what Chelsea do in terms of Juventus. Do they then go, do you know what? What we'll do is we're asking for 40 million, but like we did with Dortmund, we'll reduce that to 21 million with some add-ons. And just see if Juventus go, yeah, all right, we'll take that and we'll happily pay the add-ons. Just as like an inspite to Dortmund to be like, see, we are willing to compromise, but you're actually taking the biscuit. It has to be mutual from both sides. You don't want to pay 40, fine, we'll come down to what you're happy with. Don't then try and reduce it even more because we reduced it to what you're happy with. So it'd be very interesting to see how this plays out. So I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions. Do you feel like Juventus are going to try and push for a loan, or do you think they're going to be more than happy to pay for a permanent move? And what do you think that figure will look like? Will it be closer to the 40 million that Chelsea originally wanted, or do you feel like it'd be something along the lines of what they offered Dortmund, around that sort of 21, 22 million with some add-ons? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below. Pletygol has reported that Bayern directors Erbel and Friend, I think that's how you pronounce their names, have been told by the bosses above them that they are only allowed to sign players on loan for the rest of the window. Erbel, Friend and Nkunku are all frustrated. They go on to report that Chelsea have once again made it clear to Bayern that only a permanent deal for Nkunku, all parties are frustrated. Nkunku, Erbel, Friend and company. This, again, it's these German clubs. What's going on? Now, I get it. If your boss says you can't do anything and there's a lot of red tape to jump through, it's very, very frustrating. We've all been there in the working world where you're like, oh, but it makes sense to do this, or this will benefit the company in this way, or whatever. And they're like, nah, do it this way. And you kind of go, what are you doing? You know, we want the player. Maybe the manager wants the player. The club wants the player, but they don't want to be spending extra money. I kind of get that. It is very frustrating. But it's also frustrating for Chelsea because Nkunku's had a lot of interest across Europe, whether it's Italian clubs, whether it's Premier League clubs, whether it's German clubs. It's wild. It's wild how many people have, or how many clubs have been interested, but no one's really pushed any further. Now, Nkunku has basically agreed personal terms with Dortmund. Not Dortmund, Bayern Munich. And he's like, yeah, I'll take that. I'll go Munich, no problem. It's just club to club level. He's also agreed personal terms with RB Leipzig in that sense of like, yeah, I'll quite happily go back, quite keen on that move. It's just club to club level. We're going to speak about that in just a second. But I just find it very frustrating. We've got Nkunku, Jackson, Carney, Vega. These are all players that we're not struggling to move on because there are a lot of interest. But it's like all the clubs that are interested and are not willing to meet either on a permanent or a loan or anywhere near the valuation that we give them. And I feel like, I said yesterday about Vega, right? He wants to go Villarreal, and I feel like Chelsea can quite happily reduce the fee we're asking and still make mad profit. I think, you know, just don't be greedy with that. And I think they can hopefully learn their lesson from the Atletico deal, where, again, maybe they just ask for a bit too much money. Fair enough. But it's kind of the same with any of the other players. Nkunku for around 40 million, I think is a fair price. Jackson for around 60, yeah, you could say it's inflated. Originally we wanted 80, but realistically, with all the strikers that have moved this summer, it is a fair price, really. It'd be one of the cheaper moves of the summer window, let's be honest. Hugo going for 95 million euros, and, you know, other players, Sesko going for silly money as well. So I think it fits in and around that, and it's fairly cheap in comparison. So I don't feel like Chelsea are asking for the world here. Carney Chukwuemeka at 40 million, yeah, that could be a bit of a stretch, let's be real. Could be a bit of a stretch. But we've even said that we're willing to reduce that for a club like Dortmund to around 22 million. We sold Broja for 20 million. So I feel like we're not asking for the world here. But I also feel like there is a lot of red tape on Bayern's side, which is really holding things up. Maybe there's a select number of people in there that are like, we really want Nkunku, we want this deal to get over the line. But the boss is like, nah, we ain't spending a penny. Just loans, that's it. And it does break things down. However, we have had some more reports from another German club regarding Nkunku. David Ornstein has reported that RB Leipzig are stepping up talks with Chelsea over a move for Christopher Nkunku. The discussions are for a permanent deal, with Nkunku open to the possibility of rejoining his former club and keen on a permanent transfer. The Guardian Sport have reported there is a confidence that a fee can be agreed between Chelsea and Leipzig for Nkunku. Inter Milan also interested. Now, previously in the video, it was clearly Inter Milan. I swear Juventus. It was one of those Serie A teams that were interested in Nkunku with the wages being the issue or whatnot. But regardless of that, Leipzig and Nkunku makes so much sense. We did a video here a couple weeks ago now where it was like swap deal could potentially happen. We spoke about this in depth. Nkunku goes to Leipzig. Xavi Simons comes to Chelsea. It makes so much sense. Nkunku going back to a club that he's loved at. He has emotional connection with the fans. He played his best football of his career at. Put his name on the map in terms of a world-class player where Chelsea obviously purchased him from. It makes so much sense. Nkunku has expressed the interest to play Champions League football, and unfortunately RB Leipzig didn't qualify for the Champions League, but I don't think that will be the be-all and end-all if a deal can be arranged, because I think at the same time, Nkunku's like, I just want to play football. The seasons are starting now, and I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just training with a lone group. I'm training with a group that isn't involved in the football. Let me kick a ball. Let me kick ball and show what I can do. So I kind of get the frustrations from a player side. Now, it's interesting because the last time we heard anything about these two clubs dealing with Nkunku, it was a potential loan. It wasn't going to be a swap deal. It wasn't going to be one of those deals where Xavi goes one way and Nkunku comes the other pretty much instantaneously, which is basically a swap deal with a bit of difference in change. It was like, no, we'll take him on loan, but wages could be a problem. And we kind of debunked the wages because they were saying he was on like 20 million euros a year and he's just not on anything near that. He is on 195 grand a year, which I think works out about 11 million euros a year because they've got wage structures in place, etc. Fair enough. I also feel like he'd willingly reduce his wages as well to go back to a club like Leipzig where he has that connection. That's just my opinion. Don't want to put words in the guy's mouth. But now it seems that they changed their tune. And again, this could be a Dortmund and Juventus type deal where it's like Chelsea have offered and said, right, this is what we're willing to do. One club's messed us about. Another club comes in interested. We go, do you want the same deal? And will you take it? And they might go, yeah, happy days. We'll have that. So we could see something along those lines. Now, like we mentioned at the start of the video, with Xavi Simons' deal basically already done. It's been done behind the scenes and we're just waiting for the offloading of Nkunku or Jackson to have that domino fall. This could be the key. This could be the catalyst to make it all fall into place if RB Leipzig are willing to go for Nkunku. So it could be a case of an instantaneous sort of deal one way for both players, right? Where whether they trigger it first, we trigger it first, who knows? No doubt it's going to happen within the next few days, regardless. But if Nkunku is keen on the move, he's keen on a permanent transfer, and now Leipzig are like, do you know what? Yeah, we'll get him on a permanent. There's now confidence that a fee can be agreed as well. And again, if we're going to be spending like 60 million euros on Xavi Simons, which has been reported multiple times, that's sort of the fee that's been agreed behind closed doors. And then they're going to spend what, like 45, 50 million euros on Nkunku. They still make profit, but they also get an experienced player at 27 who is loved by the fans there. I think it just makes perfect sense for both parties, right? And then we actually finally get Xavi Simons, who's been patiently waiting and turning away interest from City, Munich and other clubs because he just wants Chelsea. So this is really good news that, yes, Nkunku's got a lot of interest around him, but there's now clubs trying to step up and being like, hey, we're getting near the end of the window now. We need to make some signings. What is it going to take to get this over the line? And for Leipzig to change their mind and be like, you know what, permanent deal, yeah, I think it just makes sense for all parties. But let me know your thoughts and opinions down below. Does this make sense for all parties? With Nkunku going one way, Leipzig obviously buying him on a permanent, not a loan, that was originally reported a few weeks ago. And obviously we get Xavi Simons. Do you think that makes a lot of sense? Or do you think that it's going to fall through and Nkunku goes to a Serie A team or ends up going to Munich on a loan? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below. Edu17 Burgos has reported that Nicolas Jackson is clear that he will leave Chelsea and Aston Villa is pushing hard. They want a loan with an obligation to buy and Nico likes the idea. Fabrizio Romano on the Here We Go podcast reported this very simple sentence: Jackson and Chelsea is over. Edu17 Burgos continues to report that Nicolas Jackson's future will be decided this week. Aston Villa are pushing hard for a loan with an obligation to buy. Forest, Newcastle, AC Milan, Inter Milan and Juventus have all contacted his agent. Ben Jacobs has reported that Chelsea want a £10 million loan fee if they are to sanction a loan with an obligation deal for Nicolas Jackson. Again, I find this very interesting because Chelsea are like, right, £80 million. And people are like, no, way too expensive. All right, we'll take 65, 60 million pounds. And people are like, we haven't really got that money sitting around. A few clubs have said, yeah, potentially. But, we want to try and get it for as little as possible. And Nicolas Jackson made it clear that he wants to leave Chelsea. Chelsea have even said, we'll help you find suitors. If you tell us you want to stay, we'll reintegrate you, not a problem. You're more than welcome. Maresca's even said there's always a place for him in the squad. He's training with the first team. He's just not involved with game times, right? Fair enough. Now everyone's like, cool, the window's slowly shutting. It's shutting and shutting and shutting. There's the daylight between the window and the crack in the window is getting smaller and smaller. So maybe Chelsea are like, do you know what? If we're going to get a loan with obligation, we want some money up front as like a deposit, as a guarantee. We'll put an obligation to buy and then you pay the rest next season. I feel like that could be a really amicable way to make sure Jackson gets the move away that he wants, because if clubs haven't got the money, they haven't got the money. And I know this is a bit of a different take compared to Nkunku, Carney and Vega, etc. But they've been on it for a long, long time, and we know that there is a shortage of strikers. So this is a priority position for a lot of clubs of getting a number 9. Yesterday we spoke about Napoli saying that they're interested in Jackson because Lukaku's injured. So this could be a potential option. We've got that myriad of clubs, Forest being interested as well, even though they've got Chris Wood, which I find very strange. And he's on fire. That first game scoring 2 goals, unreal. And last season, unbelievable. So I find that strange. However, he's got a number of clubs willing to come in for him. It's just about who's willing to pay the most money. Now, if Chelsea are basically saying this, look, you give us 10 mil on a loan fee and an obligation, we'll talk. That opens a lot of doors. And that's where Chelsea can then increase the negotiations and say, well, we said 10 mil loan fee with an obligation. So what we're going to do is the obligation maybe a bigger amount for certain clubs, depending on what they're willing to pay on that obligation, right? So they might say, do you know what? We'll give you 10 mil now and we'll give you 40 million next year on an obligation. And we go, 50 million pounds over the season. Yeah, all right, fair enough. Whatever it may be. They might have different breakdowns. They might negotiate in different ways. But I feel like this makes the most sense in terms of amicable splits from Jackson to Chelsea. Chelsea get their money and Jackson can go to a club where he feels special, gets game time and is played as a number 9. Because like we said, if he's reintegrated into the squad at the end of the transfer window, I think it's a long day at the office for him. It's going to be a long, long journey for him to get back into Enzo Maresca's system. Even though Maresca has basically said there's a place for him in the project, there's a place for him in the squad, but we'll see what happens. I feel like he's saying what he needs to be, save face, be nice about it personally. Again, don't want to put words in the guy's mouth. That's just the perception I get, where he's not going to throw him under the bus, because I feel like he appreciates and respects what he did do for us last season, even though the negatives come into play as well overall. You know what I mean? So I feel like he's just doing that to be like, look, we can fit him in, but window's open, we'll see what happens. However, it does look like Nicolas Jackson will be leaving on loan if this is what Chelsea are now asking for. It's a lot different than asking for £60 million in one big fee, or split over a few years, or as a transfer fee indefinitely. And I feel like with all these clubs that don't have as much money, very evidently throughout this transfer window, this would be a lot more appealing because they can spread things out. The obligation can then be set to the standards that they are expecting. And of course, what I really like about the obligation to buy is if the player meets those requirements, it means that you buy the player and you're happy to buy the player because they've met the expectations in the contract. The only example I've seen where it hasn't worked is the Jadon Sancho deal, where we were like, hey, we're really happy with him. He wasn't willing to reduce his wages. And then there was another clause saying that we pay £5 million to United if we send him back. Chelsea could do the exact same thing. They could say, right, 10 million up front, obligation to buy. If you fail to do the obligation for whatever reason that isn't, it's something that you can control, for example, there'll probably be some sort of get out clauses. There has to be. It'll be like, I don't know, you pay £30 million. So then they're incentivized to buy the player rather than send them back. I think that much makes a lot of sense, and it makes Nicolas Jackson widely available for a lot of these clubs, for a player who's basically made it very clear he wants to leave this summer. So I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions down below. Do you feel like Jackson will go to Villa? Because I feel like Villa will snap this up, them being very interested. Being a £10 million loan with an obligation helps them with the PSR side of things, means that they can spread that payment out. Again, the only question mark I ever get with Villa is what's happening with Ollie Watkins. Nothing's been said about him. I don't see Nicolas Jackson taking Ollie Watkins' place, let's be real. But I feel like a club like Aston Villa, who may struggle with PSR funds, could really go for this. I also feel like he would really help Aston Villa's squad depth, because Unai Emery, the connection there, he gave him his chance. He could play him left wing, he could play him as a number 9. It makes a lot of sense in my opinion. That's all I'm saying, but I'd love to know your thoughts down below. And that's the latest Chelsea news. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on everything that's been reported down below in the comment section. I love having a conversation with you guys. And if you have watched this video all the way to the end, firstly, you're a real one, and I mean that. You're a real one. And secondly, there'll be a thumbnail appears on the screen. So if you are a Chelsea fan who enjoys Chelsea content, make sure you click that thumbnail because you'll enjoy that video too.